conversations with myself. So the conversation I'm having with myself right now is about social media protesting, should I call it? I don't know. What I'm trying to say is when something unjust happens in society, community, the world, all of a sudden there's all of these political posts about the issue, the subject, the topic, what is occurring, has occurred. Everyone, I won't say everyone, but people that have not spoken on a particular subject or issue in the past all of a sudden feel that they have to. Now, there's also the annoyance that I have with feeling like because you want justice in your mind, maybe in your heart, that by posting, quotes, pictures, comments regarding the issue, that is somehow going to contribute to justice happening, being made, right? But it doesn't. That's good that you agree that yes, wrong was done, and that yes, things need to change, and something needs to be done, right? But everyone needs to understand that everyone has to do what it is that they're supposed to do, and no one is supposed to do nothing, right? And we say, well, what am I supposed to do? What can I do? Right? We don't know. What can I do? How can I have an impact on this? How can I make something improve? How can I do my part? Do I donate? Do I go out and protest myself? Do I somehow join an organization, perhaps, right, that is fighting for justice in the world and somewhere in our areas, communities, right? And that's not for everyone to do. If it is meant for you to do something, you will know what that is, because everyone has been equipped for what they're called to do. I believe that in some way, shape, or form. Some people were called to stay back and pray. And yeah, I believe in prayer. Yes, I do. So that may be their part. Some people were called to take political action, right? If you have an understanding, knowledge of politics and policy, and perhaps grant writing and creating measures on ballots and such, yes, then that's what you do. But I'll say this. Everyone was called to do something. Everyone was prepared to do something within the world, right? To make it better. And it's not waiting till something happens to come out and decide, yes, this is an issue, this is a problem. Because to me, that's an issue in and of itself. At this point, if you're just now realizing that this is that racial injustices and racism is an issue, is a problem, when things like this happens, the only time that it comes into your mind, then that's part of the problem. That's a big part of the problem. I will say the beginning is always within your own household, right? Raise your kids. Raise your kids. Raise your kids. Talk to your kids. Train your kids. Teach your kids. The things that we know they're not learning anywhere else, or they're learning wrong, incorrectly, right? Schools, history, all of that. Don't expect them to get it from school. No. And it's not just for people of color to be the ones that have to teach our kids. No. It's everybody. That's where the problem begins also, within the home, and what children are raised believing is true and what's right for them and for everybody else that's like them or different than them. And sometimes where we live in areas where, thankfully, I don't and never have, where we only live with people like us, right? We don't see anything outside of ourselves, who we are, right? Our families, our culture, our ethnicities, and even Europeans are not taught their history here in the United States, and that's an issue. That's where it begins too, because a lot of the history that they're learning in schools is incorrect, right? Starting from preschool, yes, we start there. Starting from once a child can see, pretty much, I'll say that, when they're born, if they can see, the images that they see. Once you read to them, what are they looking at, what are they hearing, what types of stories, what kind of people are they raised around. It starts there. When they go to school, I'm a teacher, so yes, that it's my responsibility to teach the right thing at the schools to the students. And for some people, they don't know yet. Well, what else? What else am I supposed to do? How else besides, okay, talk to my kids, teach my kids in my household, have those conversations, a dialogue within your extended family, yes? Then it moves toward coworkers. Then it moves toward friends, right, in your circle. Because a lot of times people are friends with the same people like themselves, right? You have the same beliefs, same attitudes. And maybe you never talk about issues such as, race in the world, in America, in our communities. Just focus on that before you move on to the rest of the world. But it's not something that can just be turned into a post, something that can just be turned into just a quick, I acknowledge that this is happening, and then I'm finished. There, I acknowledged it. But then, where's the action? What are you going to do? And people say, well, it's not my problem. It's not affecting me. Yes, it is. If you live here, if you're alive in anywhere in the world, yes, it's affecting you. And if you think that it isn't, well, I hope we figure that out. Because that's a next step of something we need to do, is self-reflection, right? Where do I stand? Where am I in all of this? What do I say when people not like me are around, as opposed to what I say when they're not? Is it different? Is it the same? Why? Well, those are your true feelings. Me, myself, I work in schools. I've always worked in schools. Even when I was in high school, I worked in schools, teaching after-school programs, working in preschools, daycares, and of course, I never liked school myself. Don't get confused learning with school. I always loved learning, reading. But even then, elementary school, I always knew something is wrong. Something is very wrong here. And of course, when I got out of high school, the last thing I would think of ever being would be a teacher. But like I said, whatever you have been equipped for from the very beginning, doesn't matter what you want to do. It will, you will be forced into that place. And I tried to get away from it, get away from school and teachers. I never liked teachers, never liked the whole curriculum, nothing. It was never right for me. School didn't work for me, right? The way that it was. So, I could say I was self-taught for most of my education, right? So, lo and behold, I became a teacher, okay? Because I couldn't not. So, after trying multiple other things, and there was always something that I didn't like, couldn't do. It was miserable, right? Trying to, work behind a desk. Oh, no, not for me, not at all. I always had, inferiority complex, I guess you can say. I always had issues with authority. I guess you could say very rebellious. Can't tell me what to do. You tell me what to do, I'll do the opposite. Just because. And so that ended up working for me because as a teacher, that's exactly what I did. What? This is the curriculum you're giving me? I don't think so. I'm not teaching this. Bunch of lies, you know. I teach the standards though, I'll tell you that. I'll follow the standards. I do what I'm supposed to, right, for every grade. And I taught kindergarten, every grade in elementary, on up, middle school, taught PE, right now I'm working secondary, you know. I've been working in middle school and high schools for the past few years, and also actually teacher ed in university now, which is very different than I thought it would be. Anyway, I say all that to say I was called to teach, and that's what I use to do my part, to teach young people about themselves, number one, about each other. They teach each other about each other. Not just, you know, different personalities, different religions, different lifestyles, family, you know, makeups, income levels, different cultures, different, just everything, you know. They research their own family history, all of that, so they can know who they are. They learn who each other are. And thankfully, I've always worked in highly diverse schools. And when I say diverse, I mean, you know, we have refugees from all over the world. We have multiple languages spoken. We have multiple religions. We have multiple family dynamics. We have variety of ethnicities. It's beautiful. That's what I'll say. I'll say it's beautiful. And I was, me myself, growing up, I grew up in the same type of school, same area, San Francisco, Bay Area, actually Daly City. You know, I had friends from every continent, you know, and it was just, and that's what I say, is that's what prepared me for what my job was. And I'll say this, everything that my teachers didn't teach me also prepared me to be the teacher to teach what needs to be taught, regardless of what the curriculum may be that I am given. I'm required. I'm not required to teach that curriculum. I'm required to teach the standards, yes, and I do that, like I said. But the whole point of this conversation with myself is point is we all have something that we have been brought to this earth to do, and mine is to teach, whether it's academic, whether it's emotional, whether it's just developing relationships with the students that can help to empower them to grow up and do, meet their calling, find what their calling is, their purpose is, and help them to really love who they are, understand who they are, but then also love and appreciate others and the differences that we all have, Like I remember in preschool, I still have the book too. There's a book called We Are All Alike, We Are All Different. And the same, so much of what I learned because I originally went to City College, ECE, Early Childhood Education. That was the foundation of my teaching, my doctrine. I would say that my doctrine, my pedagogy. It's in early childhood you study the child's brain development. I don't know why when you teach elementary, the brain development is not even mentioned. None of it. Social, emotional learning, not even mentioned in the credential program. Not even talked about, as if it's not important. Elementary school, middle school, high school, you still need to understand the development of the brain at every age and stage, right? But we don't. But anyway, so I got that from ECE because I thought I would only remain in early childhood, but there was a different plan. So I guess I was supposed to go on and work with adults, teens, older people, and I'm thankful for that because I enjoy having, just deep conversations with them, talk about life, real stuff, and that's exactly the stuff that we need to be talking about within our households. And like I said, I've worked in schools. Well, of course, we know most of the teaching staff, or the staff as a whole, the administration, all of it, district superintendent, it's mainly Caucasians, mainly white. Well, I'll say it. No matter what area I've worked in, from the city to over here, East Bay, all that, it doesn't even matter. It's mostly white. So, have there been conversations I've had to have? Yes. Was it uncomfortable for me? No. Was it uncomfortable for them? Yes. Because they never had to talk about it before. But when we work in schools and we don't call other employees out that are working with the students, okay, that's a problem. Yes. Should you say something every time? Yeah. Are they going to be mad at you and dislike you and think you're hostile or this and that, or just preoccupied with race? Everyone's racist, and it's like, yeah, if that's the way you feel, then that's true. Yes, it is. You're racist if you feel that way. So don't get mad at me for telling you the truth, right? So I've had to have these conversations about simple things. You might think it's just something to brush off, like a person calling a student, referring to them as boy. I had to have a conversation about that. That might not seem like a big deal to you, but yes, it is. There's a history about that. Yeah, there is. So many things. There's a million examples of conversations I've had to have, and yes, it's exhausting. But you know what? How those comments that you think are unnoticed or minimal or nothing that you should even address, those students are feeling that when they go to school and hear those comments. So I know because I felt it too when I was in school. I saw it, I observed it, and I know the damage that it does. It does do damage. So by me not saying anything, I'm continuing that to allow that to persist, to continue, to go on, right? And so sometimes if people don't want to listen, then, just walk away, shut me out, think I'm just exaggerating everything, because I'm going to advocate for the students more than the adults who work with them. So sometimes I just send them articles, sometimes I just send them videos, sometimes it's, of different speakers speaking on the subject, the topic. Sometimes I refer them, the districts to have certain guests come and do professional developments and all that, because all the professional development, not all, but probably all the professional developments I've had over the 25 plus years working in schools, I can't even tell you of one that was helpful for me, meaningful for me. So in workplaces, it's important to have these conversations, these dialogues. And I say in schools because, that's where I work and that's what I know. But you are employees working every single day with students, with young people. And if you're not forced to analyze yourself and your thinking, where it came from, how it's damaging, and you're allowed to continue working in schools, and how dare some people even call themselves teachers, something needs to be done. Start there, at least. Start there. I just think every person in any field, really, there needs to be open dialogue about issues of race, and explicit. When I say explicit, I mean, when they say no holds barred, yes, that's what I mean. Yeah, people's feelings will be hurt, but you know what? We don't have time to be concerned with that. I'm not concerned with, and that's why I guess I might have been a little too harsh or say ruthless, I don't know, with my approach toward the end of my years that I was actually a classroom teacher, because I'm not in that position right now. I'm doing other things within schools, but I got so frustrated to the point where I didn't care. I'm gonna just say things, and I don't care if you feel uncomfortable and if you cry, because I just got so tired of seeing how it is affecting the families, not just the students, the families of color, right? And administration, yeah, they were a little intimidated by me, I know. Don't care at all. But when I see the students and how they appreciate it and how their families appreciate it, then I know I'm even if they didn't, I know I'm doing what's right, even though it may seem like I'm the enemy. I say what needs to be said when it needs to be said. That's all. And if you ask me a question, I'm going to give you an honest answer, and that's the type of dialogue and conversations. People don't know history of a lot of these issues. This stuff is not just all of a sudden, When we say, oh yeah, it's happening more, because of this and that, it's like, yeah, there's you have to take into account, social media and the availability of cameras on phones, videos, all of that, you know, being able to be televised, right? So, like they say, the revolution will not be televised. Or now, will it? I hope so. I hope that that's what needs to happen, right? So, any person can have an impact in their world, their part of the world, in their area, right? Like I said, some people's job may be to pray. Some people's job, if you can write academically, you write articles, write grants maybe for some programs, go into policy, write politicians, just write. If you can write creatively, write songs, write poetry, spoken word, write books, stories, narratives. I think that's what we need so much more of too. If you can speak publicly, do that. If you know how to paint, draw artistically, you can create murals, things like that, right? Posters, you can, if you can teach, please teach the right thing. If you have children or relatives, nieces, nephews, cousins, right? Talk to them, have conversations with your families, because even in families of color, I'll say this, I am Puerto Rican, and I had a Puerto Rican relative, had the nerve, in broken English, could barely speak English, had the nerve to tell me, I am a white girl. I need to live like a white person in this country and have white friends. That was a conversation specifically told to me by a very close relative, right? Straight from Puerto Rico. That's the brainwashing that is done to many of us, right? So it's not just white people. In every ethnic culture, there's also colorism and racism within that as well. So, just saying, because some people don't want to admit to that either. I've had relatives say things to me because he was my boyfriend at the time. Now he's my husband, who is black. Tell me, oh, you're gonna have checkered kids. Another relative says that to me when I'm, I think I was 18 years old or something. And I mean, I can go on and on about all of that stuff, but the whole point of this was to say everything that has been said to us since childhood, every experience we've had, everything that's been done to us has prepared us to work in that area, in some specific area, right? And everything positive and negative, both shapes who we are, what we think, feel, believe, and prepares us. We are all prepared in the ways that we need to be prepared to do the work that we have to do. And if you want to sit back and like I said, just sit up and wait for other people to be the ones to stand up, wait for other people to be the ones to decide what we do, wait for other people to fix issues and problems. But you know, do I think think something as huge as racism will ever be fixed? No, I don't. Do I think that there will ever be world peace? No. I know that there won't. Do I think that we'll ever, not have wars? Do I think there will be equality? No. Never. Never. I don't care if it's just in my lifetime, but even after. Well, I really don't. But does that stop me from having hope and believing that I could make a positive impact, make a difference in my world, and the people surrounding me, the people I come in contact with? And it's not just, people in my family. It's not just, people I happen to work with. It's not just my students that I work with. It's every day I leave my house. Who am I? What type of conversations am I having with say, random people? Right? What do I look like? How am I driving around in my car? You can see how people are, how they drive. Nobody cares about anybody else. It's always about us, and people are always so consumed with trying to be happy, trying to find joy. Like it's not about you being happy, having joy. It's not. That's a very selfish way to live. If that's what your number one concern is your happiness and your joy, you're living very selfishly for yourself. And truth is, you will never be happy. You will never be content if that's how you're living, because the only way that I'm ever happy is when I'm doing something for someone else, doing something to make my part of the world a little bit better. And it might seem small, insignificant, but all of those little things add up, and I can count all the students that I've had over the years, all of the friends that I've had, all the people I've worked with who I've got to know and who I may have helped in one way or another. Encouraging them to live their life, to just, try and have a purpose in what they're doing. And a purpose to me is always, what are you doing to make things better for other people, not just you. Not you. That's when I'm the most miserable, when I'm not useful and helpful to someone else. That's why times like this are hard for me. Every summer vacation, because I don't work in the summers. Every summer vacation, every Christmas break, even we get 2 weeks off for Christmas, we get a week off for Easter. Even those times, that's when I get anxious. That's when I start tearing wallpaper off the walls. That's when I start painting. That's when I start gardening. That's when I start, drawing and painting, and because there's always a lot of, extra anxiety and stuff you need to get out, So, I have been tearing this wallpaper off since, what time was it? It's already, I think, midnight or past midnight right now. But yeah, I have to try and be constructive. I mean to write. I do. I mean to write. I mean to do a lot of things that I don't do out of fear. I still have that in me. Like, I don't want to be a self-proclaimed anything. Too many self-proclaims everything. I don't want to say, I'm not a writer, but I like to write. I like to read even more. And I think that's what helps me write. I always say that I learned how to write from reading. I didn't learn how to write by learning, grammar errors and all that, and spelling tests, and nope. I learned how to write from reading. And when I say books saved my life, yes, they did. So if it's writing that we can do during this time, do it. And hopefully it will be something that can be shared, and that can be your part, right? Sharing your story, what you're doing. But yeah, I just get a little frustrated or annoyed with passivity, passive, non-action, talking too much. I don't like talking too much about shoulda, coulda, woulda, or what I'm gonna do, or none of that. I don't want to talk about it. I just like when they say, "Oh, don't talk about it, be about it." It's exactly right. Yeah, exactly. So, since I don't feel like people care to hear me necessarily talking, rambling on like teachers do, maybe I should write. I mean, I write in journals and all that, but it's not something I share with anyone. But I have been meaning to write a memoir for about 50 years, right? And I have been meaning to write something for new teachers, some sort of a reflective journal for new teachers, something. I don't know, I just have a lot of things I want to do. I also want to write children's books. I always say that. I've been saying that for 50 years too. But only if it's going to be like I said, have a purpose, something that can be helpful, not just because something about things and issues that are not spoken of enough, right? So this is how I talk to myself in my head. So sometimes it's more interesting, sometimes it's scary, sometimes it might be funny, sometimes it's depressing, sometimes I might think I'm crazy. Well, I have always been called that. That's one of my nicknames, right? You're so weird. You're so weird. That's all I ever heard. You're crazy. She's crazy. But as I got older, I learned when people said I'm weird or crazy, it just means I'm an individual. I am unique. I am not a follower. I don't like the term overthinker. I don't think you could ever think too much. People just don't think enough. That's the problem. Yes, I analyze things. I don't want to say overanalyze. I don't believe we don't analyze enough. We need to analyze ourselves. Why do we think the way we do? Where did it come from? What can I do to change that for my children and the next generations? What can I do? If I keep on thinking, believing the same, right? We always like to feel like I'm right. I'm right. The way that I think and feel is right. You are wrong. And it's not that way. And when I teach about different, I don't really say, when I'm teaching about different religions and all of that, different cultures, ethnicities, the history, all of that, it's never opinion. It's never my opinion, what I think or feel, because it's just, it is what is, right? That's what you're teaching. This is what this culture is, this way, these are their practices, this is what they do, this religion, this is their doctrine, this is their beliefs, this is how they worship, this is where it came from, this is how it's just, these are the foods that people eat from these parts of the world, and this is why, this is what these symbols mean, symbolism, this is what, it's just all of that. This is how this family is made up. This is how this person identifies as and feels. And it's the students sharing who they are, me sharing who I am, and their family sharing who they are, without judgment. Because bottom line is, we are all human beings, and it doesn't change. Whatever religion we are doesn't change that fact. Whatever country we're from doesn't change that fact. Whatever language we speak doesn't change that fact. Whatever our sexual orientation is doesn't change that fact. Whatever income level we are, socioeconomic status, whatever part of the world we live in, whatever job we do, work we do, however we think, whatever disabilities we might have, how intellectual we might be, none of those things, nothing makes any person better or worse than anybody else. Nothing changes the fact that you're still human. You were still created. You were still brought here to this earth for a reason. And nothing could change that. So that's what I teach. That's what I really think, feel, and believe, and that is what I teach, and that's what I don't understand how so many people could have so many prejudices and just beliefs that they have to force other people to believe what they believe, or see things how they see things, or that I don't understand. How can you feel like someone is less than a human for any reason? Scientifically it doesn't make sense to me, but morally, ethically, it's nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense. I don't understand, but I don't want to understand that, because I think those are the people I think are sick. They're sick in the head. That just needs some work. Needs some work done. Right? Work in your heart, in your soul. That's the work that needs to be done with all of us. Analyzing who we are. To try and change make our flaws a little better. No one's ever going to be, this perfect person or anything, but we can all be better. We can all improve. So I think I should stop now, because I need to stop with this wall. I did half of the room, so I think I'll finish tomorrow. Okay, no more of this. And I didn't even eat today yet. Wow. Okay.